Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Morning. We'll get started in just a moment. We're just going to wait for folks to get their coffee and their breakfast and get started. We have a raised hand already. For folks who would like the captions are turned on via Zoom. Our wonderful colleagues at Partners Interpreting are providing the captions. Patty Parker is our CART provider. Thank you, Patty. You can also follow the captions on a separate URL, which I have put into the chat via stream text. And as a reminder, as we're going through this, please take care of yourselves. Move about, hydrate, sit, eat, lie down, anything that you need to stay engaged. We're here for an hour. We want to make this easy. And again, we want you to be able to take care of yourselves. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted on the Mass Cultural Council's YouTube channel afterwards. And I believe the wonderful team at Creative Experiences will be sending out the slideshow, which does have some resources on it that you may want to hold. So remember, the slideshow will be presented, and the presentation this hour today will go on our YouTube channel. But I did want to thank everyone for coming. My name is Charles Baldwin. I am the Program Officer for Access and Inclusion at the Mass Cultural Council, and have really been leading the work of the Deaf and Disability Equity Plan, which I think you're all responding to. So congratulations on getting the grant. Let's dive in. I'm going to begin sharing my screen. And again, want to thank the team at Creative Experiences for inviting me. Good morning, Timothea. Thanks for inviting me in. This is an Access 101. Please note, I use images on a lot of these slides. I will not be describing each image. The images are really an opportunity to show the width and breadth of the types of experiences and projects that we fund. I will describe this first picture because I just think it's adorable, of a mom and a baby looking at a mirror. And this is the joy on the baby's face, the infant's face, is so great that I thought it was a great way to really start talking about access and our work here at the council. But again, I won't be describing each and every image, nor will I be reading all the information off of each slide. But again, we'll make the slide presentation available to everyone who RSVP'd. The power of culture, of course, is the Mass Cultural Council's sort of mantra, the power of culture. We really believe in it. We're an independent state agency, and we have the opportunity to support the creative sector. And that means for the folks who live here and visit here and play here. One thing, and this is a tone that you'll get throughout this presentation, access is really considered a work in progress. Don't let the idea of being perfect prevent you from getting started. We know and can identify barriers that we experience every day. What we're looking for really is an understanding of the language in the ADA and the nature of your responsibilities, both thinking about access as an asset to the foundation of your work, and then the nuances that allow your creativity to invite the world into your event. So I've been working for the council for about 10 years now, And I have been leading a program called the UP Initiative, which is primarily a learning network to really develop a community of practice. And there are four characteristics that we're always thinking about when we think about access. And I'm going to briefly read these because they're sort of our calling card. Um, the vision. All of you come with a mission and a vision, and we really want those missions to be activated by embracing inclusion as a core organizational value. Education, what you're experiencing today, is part of learning more, but we also really believe in sharing the threading together of our community of practice so that we are all stronger together. Representation is key, and that is ensuring that you're listening to the voices of the people that you're hoping to invite in and embrace as part of your organization. But this also means the diversity on your staff, within your volunteers, within your board. We know that diversity, like any ecosystem, is strengthened by our diversity. And innovation. It can be hard sometimes to take those risks to try something new, but this is why our vision of access really embraces this idea of trying things, what works, what doesn't, and keep moving forward. So, many of you have experienced this question when you were applying for this grant. How is your site or event accessible to people who are deaf or have a disability? I'm not going to answer that yet. I'm going to let you think about that while I present. But do note that it was just 2 years ago, we would ask, is your site or event accessible? Yes or no? That can be arbitrary. So we really are looking at the how. How are you doing it? What are you doing? And what do you hope may improve down the pike? All right. Thank you for your time. Away we go. So, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, defines disability very specifically. If you were to go into the medical fields, you will find disability defined in other manners. Uh, so, this is a word that I think is important to note. Um, the ADA defines disability as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity: shopping, cleaning, cleaning yourself. Uh, so it can be big and small. But we also want to note that it could be just a record of an impairment. You knew perhaps that I had a chronic disease issue, or I've got a temporary impairment based on an injury. That's covered, but also the regarding disability. I have a friend who has cerebral palsy. It does not affect her mind, but often it is perceived that she may have a cognitive or mental disability just based on the diagnosis, cerebral palsy. Um, I would also like to take this time to say, I am not a lawyer, I'm an enthusiast. I am not a doctor, but I'm a producer. So when we're thinking about what we create, it's less about the persons and more about the event. However, that being said, there are some obligations that you have based on the laws. But first, a little bit more data. 1 in 5 people in the US identify as a person with a disability. And I can tell you in urban areas where there are more resources, it can be up to 1 in 4. But that's purely just how a person may identify. And there are functional limitations based on all sorts of circumstances. I'm an older gentleman, I don't see as well or hear as well as I used to, but I don't identify as disabled. I identify as old and the disabling nature of aging. But some things to really be thinking about. 8% of children under the age of 15 are recognized as having some form of disability. And noted on this, the most common disabilities are arthritis, back problems, heart disease, respiratory disease, not necessarily identified by the traditional stick figure in a wheelchair, which can identify access, but could also be limiting to our perception of what disables us, what creates the functional limitations within us. And as I indicated, I'm not a doctor. How that gets diagnosed, that's not what we as producers are thinking about. But you were recognizing human variety and understanding that there are disabling conditions throughout the population is really going to help you when you think about what does access mean to my organization. I mentioned the aging, and this is, of course, the silver tsunami, the baby boomers, which I am on the tail end of. But there are 10,000 people turning 65 every day. So there's a huge population of folks. And this is why we keep talking about some numbers and some data, and why we really believe that access becomes that asset-based foundation for your work. Accidents also contribute to what is disabling. This could be chronic, but it could also be temporary. And the data shows that, I had a fall a few years back, broke my wrist. These things happen all the time. And 498 Americans just became a person with a disability in the last 10 minutes. So the premise of all of this is to really be thinking about the human spectrum of ability from toddler to elder. It's on a spectrum, and it's a very regular human trait. The very laws that help protect us have also had the opportunity to kind of divide us. Who's disabled and who isn't? Again, not a lawyer, not a doctor, but just a human enthusiast. So think about, again, all the people from the little ones to the elders and everyone in between. And since the council has adopted a deaf and disability equity plan, the ADA is the foundation for that work. But it's not about mere compliance, and compliance is a legal requirement. But we are really thinking about this as an asset-based proposal for anything that you produce. So I'm going to go over a couple of slides. And when I use the phrase ADA 101, this phrase is actually in the legislation. But again, there's a lot of language that is very nuanced. And so it's really worth exploring. So we're going to start with integrated settings. That's the goal. Everyone together, not separate programs for special people, but actually the integration of all of us together. Now, recognizing that that's the goal, we also know that separate programs are permitted and sometimes beneficial. You may have a language program. I'm offering I guess I lost connection. Sorry about that. All right. We're back to integrated settings. You can hear me and see the slideshow. Great. Thank you, Timothea. So again, integrated settings, the goal, separate is allowed based on some of the parameters, but you can't exclude people from just wanting to participate in your programs. Uh, Integrated settings is part of the language, as is reasonable accommodations. Not only do you want to anticipate human variety, but you want to be responsive to requests. And so within an invitation or within information that says, come to my event is great, wonderful to have an opportunity for someone to express a need that would help them participate. That's the request. You should anticipate that there will be requests coming and have certain provisions on hand, know how to reach the person who may provide them or have the assistive technology that they need, or be prepared to say why you don't have them. Um, Undue burden is part of the writ, but if you are really gotten to the point where undue burden is your excuse for not presenting a modification, that's a big deal. And that is something I wouldn't stress. I'm much more of a fan of say yes and figure out what could work, and what might work better. So within that, you'll see the image I provided on this is a real sign in a real park in a real town where it says, no skateboarding, no bicycle riding, no scooter riding, no, 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 no. Our focus today is yes and yes, yes, yes. So when thinking about your facilities, your event, think about it as a dynamic feature, not a static moment that exists alone. But think about how people get there and how people will exit. Your entrances, your doors, your parking spaces, ramps, elevators, slopes, surface. These are all things that are great for people to be aware of to help the consumer, the patron, make a choice. Am I going? Do I want to go? And some of the auxiliary aids do not have to be big tech. It could be as simple as providing something in large format, which is you can do that on your computer, take it from the traditional 12 font, bump it up to an 18 font, check the format, you're ready to go. Having a pencil and paper available, also an auxiliary aid that is quite simple and easy to use. Some get more complicated. Captions on a video, providing images on your website so people know that they're invited. Um, don't get lost in some of these auxiliary aids, but think about some of the things you're already doing and how they aid a person who may be coming to your event. Within that are also your information systems. You know, the website is number one. Does the website allow me to figure out how am I going to get there? What am I going to experience when I get there? Are there resources for me when I'm there? Whether that means there's going to be amplified sound on the stage, or that there's going to be a quiet space that has been designated in case I need to get out of the crowd. These are things that you're probably already doing that do become features in any access provisions. Access is the act of inclusion. So, how can you think about human variety and make sure that you're promoting that for your consumers? Certainly, that includes emergency egress. Don't forget about emergency preparedness and the variety of people who may be at your site. Mapping is key. How are people going to get around? You want to know where you are and where you're going at all times. Um, know before you go or social narratives are also very helpful. It's easy to stay on the couch in front of the Netflix all the time. So, what are you going to do to prevent me from being anxious about what I'll experience when I get there? This is where I keep saying think of your site as dynamic. How are you getting there? How are you leaving? The social narrative is one way to ease a level of anxiety. And sometimes um, reminding ourselves of health and wellness, not only for ourselves and our teams, but for our patrons, is also an access feature. I mentioned areas of respite. It's great. You don't need to necessarily have a designated room. That's great too. But if you know that there are quiet areas within your site, or you've created quieter areas within your site, good to know that. In the summer, your festivals, your experiences over the summer, where's the shade? Where can my dog relieve himself? Where can I get cold water? I've got a baby. Where can I nurse the child? These are all things to be aware of, as well as acoustics and lighting on the inside. Again, ADA 101. So effective communication is another phrase that is in the ADA that you should be aware of. What is effective? What's effective for me may not be effective for you. So you really want to think about the broad spectrum of how you provide information. Is that visual, text, audio? We've got a couple of things going on in our event right now. We've got captions. I'm speaking, so there's an audio part to this, and I'm creating a visual presentation as well. So that's three modes of communication. This slide contains a number of images that for folks who may want to ensure you have wheelchair access or you're providing captioning services, uh, or you have large print playbills, those images are one way for me to easily see that you're providing something that I might need. So I don't even have to request it. I can simply go like anyone else and then use the provisions that you have on hand. So again, we're not diagnosing people, but what we are doing is creating accessible events and really thinking about the vast spectrum of humanity that we want to attend, which generally is everybody we want to attend. Within effective communications, there's a brief moment I'm going to spend on websites. You know, knowing the questions to ask a contractor if you're going through a rebuild or an update, that's key. I couldn't build it, but I know the questions to ask to ensure the contractor knows what I want. It's the same for the website. The website is often your front door. You really want to make sure that your websites are accessible to people who use screen readers or people who use the function keys, people who don't use a mouse. There's a bunch of reasons. Now, again, a lot of nuance and subtlety in this language, but WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and you can find this all on the web, are really one way to ensure that your web developer, the person who's making your code, understands what you want when you say an accessible website. The four keywords here are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Um, how those get defined, again, really have to do with the maneuverability and the ability for intuitively for me to understand how to find what I'm looking for on your website. But I can't say that enough. An accessible website is like having a front door that I can get through. Assistive listening devices are actually mentioned in the ADA. If you have a place of assembly that uses amplified sound and reserved seating, well, amplified sound being the key part, you need to have these assisted listening devices. Now, ALDs aren't for everybody. They're going to amplify the sound. You've got it often hooks directly into the sound system. Sometimes it's infrared, so it's like a Blu-ray, and Blu-ray is more popular these days, but it's a way to amplify the sound. As I said, it's not going to solve everybody wanting to hear, listen, or understand, but it is writ into the ADA that if you have a place of assembly with amplified sound, there's a number of these ALDs that you are to have. I'm not going to go deeply into this, but this is really important because it is part of the question we ask. How are you making your event accessible to someone who is deaf or has a disability? You'll note we use small and large d when we use the word deaf. Small d deaf would really be about the condition of deafness, the diagnostic hearing loss. Often experienced by older folks. I mentioned earlier, I don't hear as well as I used to. I'm sure all my neighbors can hear my TV shows late at night, but that has allowed me to hear the sound because I've enlarged it, and also using captions as another way. Capital D deaf often refers to people who are culturally deaf and using American Sign Language as their primary language. Now, when you have an interpreter there, remember the interpreter is to help the integration of a hearing person and a deaf person communicate together. ASL should really be considered like many other languages. So, not merely an accommodation, but also a culture and a language, aesthetics, and a background. Um, so often, when I think about American Sign Language, I say develop relationships with people who are deaf first, and then think about the accommodation. ASL interpreters are really busy these days. So it's not as simple as saying, I provided the ASL interpreter and people will come. Really needs to be rooted in relationships. Mobility devices are also mentioned in the ADA. I'm not going to go into this, but we're used to seeing a wheelchair because we've seen that insignia that so it's successful. But you'll see here there are a picture of a Segway a motor scooter, and then one of those rides that you rest with one leg and propel with the other. These are all mobility devices that people can use. So you need to be prepared for people with wheels, and if they show up at the front door, you need to be prepared to welcome them like everybody else. Service animals are also mentioned in the ADA. A service animal is a trained animal. In Massachusetts, that's a dog, parenthetically, or a miniature horse. I've never seen one, but that's what it's writ that way. But it is defined as a dog that has been trained to perform a work or a task. They do not need to wear a vest, but I can assure you, many of my friends with service animals put a vest on their animal to avoid nosy questions. Um, you can only ask two questions. Is that animal a service animal? What's the task they've been trained to provide? If you're at the point of asking the task, that's really a lot. I would say two things. One, be prepared to accept service animals. I am going to have to check my Wi-Fi. Apologies. This- All right. Service animals, they're allowed. But the key thing is you should be prepared for people with emotional support animals. It's not covered by the law, but we know people have them. So, are you prepared? What is the policy? Ticketing services are also mentioned in the ADA. So if you are providing an event that requires reserved seating and ticketing, there's new laws around that. The key thing is that a person who needs the features of an accessible ADA compliant seat must be able to purchase those tickets in the same manner as everybody else. So that's online, over the phone, in person, and even through a second party if you sell tickets to an Arts Boston or a Half Price, etc. ADA seats need to be able to be purchased from all of those platforms. I have a link in the resources, and we'll send it out, that gives you a direct link to those rules around ticketing services. That was redone in 2010 when the ADA went through a reboot. Parking, I'm not even going to get into parking. However, if you have a venue that has parking, you need to have a certain amount of spots. They need to be easily accessible to the front door. Doesn't do one any good if the ADA spots are all the way across the lot and the parking, they have to traverse the parking lot. The idea is you need to be able to get to the front door easily. And the grievance procedure. Uh, this can sound intimidating, but it's really based on the opportunity to have a conversation with someone who may be experiencing a barrier. Yes, the legal language is a grievance procedure, but really what you're looking for is an opportunity to request or suggest if something isn't working. So within that, if you have a staff on your staff or in your volunteers or on your board, a designated person, that can be very helpful. They can be kept up to date on the legislation, kept up to date on the services and the technologies that you have. And that gives a person, for whoever may have this grievance or have this problem, gives them a person to talk to. And we'll talk a little bit more about planning, because planning, while not writ into the ADA, is the principles behind the ADA. Yes, and I said that was the theme of my work. Yes, and. And I do believe that having a staff that is informed and prepared and can make those decisions and can tell people what's what is your most affordable and effective access feature. That's that human-centered in production design that I always want to keep people aware of. And that's where I say, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, but I am a producer. And so what we're in charge of is how we design our event, our production, our exhibit. So inclusive design is really thinking about the variety of humans that we're inviting into our space. And can we anticipate that so that we don't need to adapt or we don't need something special because it's writ into our program. We always have ALDs, we always have amplified sound, we always, whatever that might be, that's by design. And that's really the focus of the council, is thinking about access by design. A couple of things to be aware of when thinking about by design. How do our bodies fit into the space, into the chair, into the room? Comfort levels. Is it easy to twist? Is it easy to press? Is it within reach? An awareness of how things work so that I can easily make it work. Um, you'll see that I've included both wellness and social integration into this. I think sometimes we get, when we start thinking about access, where it's code for disability, but we know that the disabling conditions that may prevent us from participating are greater than just whether I identify with functional limitations or not. We know that race and class and gender can be writ into these barriers as well. So we really always want to be aware of the nature of how everything can connect and the steps that we need to take to include people by design. So how do you measure success? Planning. It's about a candid self-assessment. So that's the evaluate authentically. Be candid with that. Assess what you have and think about where you want to go. What do you have? Where do you want to be? Work with the people that you're trying to embrace and invite. People with disabilities have become experts at working through the barriers of everyday life. Something that you step over every day may be the very thing that is the barrier to someone participating. So it's a candid assessment. It's the inclusion of diverse voices to identify barriers and solutions to those barriers, and really begin with your planning how you're going to invest in this continued improvement so that you have a sustainable, accessible program. So now the question, how is your event accessible to people who are deaf or have a disability? I'm hoping that's changed a little bit. I know that this is a resource rich, and I put a lot of information in those slides, but also trying to keep our work together today in this hour conversational, um, enthusiastic, and reasonable. You can determine what your priorities are based on your human and financial capacities, but improvement and understanding where you are, that's what the council is looking for. And because of that, we've really been investing in the Arts Access Hub. This is a centralized resource that has been designed by Open Door Arts with the voices and the participation of a variety of people to really make sure we are hitting topics and that the website itself is fully accessible. There's a number of tools on the Hub website, including self-assessment, including formats for access plans, including resources to both the written and to experts that may be able to assist you. So that becomes your number one spot, certainly in Massachusetts, although we are pushing it across the nation. I have some additional resources here. The Arts Access Hub being number one. I'm a big fan. Institute for Human-Centered Design is in Boston. It's available to us. We also have the New England ADA Center here, which covers the entire New England region, but also very helpful. And then some state resources as well. And as I said, Creative Experiences will be following up, sharing the slideshow, which will give you the resources, the list of the auxiliary aids, and all those other little things that I've mentioned. But the key thing is remembering, think about access not as a to-do list, a requirement that the Mass Cultural Council has now, but it's an asset to the foundation of all of our work. And it really is about inclusion by design.